Hi again, John Nielsen with Wing Chun Hall, and I've been asked to give my opinion on some comments that Joe Rogan made in a clip from an interview. And so, without going further, let's just see what he says.
That's one of the beauties of mixed martial arts, isn't it? That really it has debunked a lot of the myths of
Oh
traditional
yeah,
martial arts,
yeah,
right? You'd look at old stuff like, Funakoshi and old Shotokan
yeah,
videos, and you'd see magazines with different sequences and all these, Gyakuzuki reverse
yeah,
punches and Mawashi Gettys and Mai Gettys and using them on the
yeah,
street. And you can't use this stuff in,
yeah.
in, in mixed martial arts, debunk the myths.
Even worse is like kung fu.
Yeah,
Like
trapping hands and chi
guys want
sao
to do all
just,
this
it doesn't
crazy.
work, man.
Does
We're not fighting
nothing.
Shaolin wooden dummies that are just
Yeah.
hanging there.
Okay, so it's pretty clear that up to this point, Joe really hasn't said anything about Wing Chun or about anything pretty much. The interviewer is referencing all kinds of different martial arts, especially karates at the beginning. Then Joe says Kung Fu is the worst, and then the interviewer references Wing Chun. But Joe is just saying, trying to move on because it's pretty clear that he has something that he wants to say and he wants to get to it. He's not really agreeing with the interviewer, he's just moving on. But I do want to talk a little bit about what the interviewer says in his references to Wing Chun. He says that trapping hands and wooden dummies are basically ineffective. That's blatantly false. First of all, it's pretty clear that there are some top contenders in the MMA who use Wing Chun techniques and they use Wing Chun training tools. But I do want to say a couple of things um, about some misconceptions that I see with trapping and with wooden dummies. First of all, trapping. All trapping really is putting your attacker into a position where temporarily he cannot attack you, but you can attack him. That happens all the time, and of course it's useful in MMA and in real fighting. Now, wooden dummies are just a tool that you can use to train. And just like any training tool, they can be useful if you use them correctly, and they can be a waste of time if you don't know what you're doing with them. So it is important that you learn how to use a wooden dummy, but if you do, clearly it's effective. I mean, how can you really say that conditioning your forearms is not going to help you in a fight, or conditioning your knuckles is not going to help you in a fight? Of course it is. And also, any kind of training tool like a heavy bag is useful if you know what to do with it. But what's nice about a Wing Chun wooden dummy versus a heavy bag is that a wooden dummy can attack you where a heavy bag really can't. I mean, it can move into you, but it doesn't look like it's throwing punches at you or kicks at you. But a wooden dummy does. That's what all those lines that are coming at you are. They're representations of lines of attack that somebody might be coming at you with. And so you have to deal with that and then attack the dummy. And of course that's helpful. Of course it's useful. Okay, let's move on to see some of the things that Joe actually says.
But it's amazing how many guys still believe it. One of my favorite things to do on YouTube is to check out black dudes in New York who do kung fu, who think it's real, and they're like, you ain't never fought a real kung fu man, and they practice on each other. It seems like what they do is like a guy will go, okay, well, how about I'm coming at you like this? Oh man, you come at me like this. I got this right here, and I got tiger claw, and I got monkey fist, and these dudes like have dedicated like a big chunk of their life practicing this nonsense.
All right, what Joe is describing here is not Wing Chun. He's showing the different movements that these people are doing. He's also calling them names like Tiger Claw and Monkey Fist, not things that you find in the Wing Chun system. So again, Joe was not talking about Wing Chun when he was talking about these people who are doing nonsense. Now, he then goes on to describe another experience, and I would like to make some comments on that. So let's see what he has to say.
And then one of my favorite ones was these two guys actually had a fight. They decided to fight in the park, and they're both these kung fu guys. Well, one guy takes the other guy down, gets him in side control, and starts hammer fisting him in the face. I mean, it was MMA. There were two kung fu guys, and it turned into an MMA fight when they actually fought. I mean, I love that. I love watching all that nonsense be exposed, because I was a victim of it myself to a certain extent with Taekwondo.
Once again, it's pretty clear from this clip that Joe wasn't talking about Wing Chun, and that the person who posted this clip misrepresented what Joe was doing. Joe wasn't talking about Wing Chun at all. He was talking about different Kung Fus. Now, in this particular incident that he's talking about, I would like to make a comment about it. I think that Joe wasn't very thoughtful, or he wasn't really thinking through what he was saying. I think that Joe has a tendency to try to make things into a comedy routine, and so that's basically what he was doing here. And so, I'm not going to blame him for saying something that isn't exactly accurate, but I do think that it bears, criticism. So, in any case, He says that because the guy got the other guy inside control and then was using hammer fist on him, that was an MMA fight. Okay, that's his conclusion. This was MMA. Well, that's misleading, and it's a problem because what it does is it makes, it's a problem because it kind of assumes that just because you're not doing MMA, you can't do the things that are in MMA, or just because they have names for certain things that they belong to them. But the truth is that MMA is benefiting from centuries and even millennia of fighting experience, and that they're doing things that people have been doing for a very, very long time. And just because their system of development has moved along, one line of development, that doesn't mean that other systems that have moved along different lines of development haven't also maintained some of the same techniques and tactics. I just want to say, from my experience, that Wing Chun has had ground fighting in it ever since I was in it. I started doing it in 1980. And my first instructor, who I was with for close to 2 years, taught us certain ground techniques. It wasn't very sophisticated, but we did have it. And then he moved out of town, and so I moved to a different instructor. He didn't do ground techniques, and my third instructor also didn't, but my fourth instructor did. He had a very sophisticated ground fighting system. And I was with him starting in 1990. And, we were doing ground fighting then before anybody in the United States had actually heard about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So I just want to clarify that we didn't start doing ground fighting because they were doing it with Jiu-Jitsu. I will admit that we had to modify our system. We had to reevaluate it and modify it because of some of the things that they were doing. But it was there from the very beginning. So it has been in Wing Chun for a very long time. I'm sure that there are some Wing Chun people who don't do it, but there are other Wing Chun people who have. And, like I said, ever since 1980, I was doing it. So that is just something that I want to make sure that we don't get that in our mentality that just because, these people kind of specialize in this and just because these people kind of claim it and name it and that sort of thing, doesn't mean it belongs to them. It belongs to anybody who wants to fight. Wing Chun is about self-defense, and nobody can tell you what you can and you can't do with it. You can do anything with it. I mean, anything that helps you stay alive and helps you stop somebody from trying to hurt you, that's Wing Chun. Okay, so just to clarify, Joe never said anything about negative about Wing Chun. He never said anything about Wing Chun at all. It was the interview who made references to it. The claims that he made in those references were false. But if you look at some of the other things that Joe Rogan has said about fighting, and if you take him seriously, and if he takes himself seriously, he's actually recommending Wing Chun. In fact, if he really wants what he says he wants, with probably one exception to the things that he says, then he would get out of Jiu-Jitsu and he would do Wing Chun. I don't have time for that in this video, but I will do it in some future videos. In the meantime, feel free to make your own comments about what Joe said below. Just remember to keep them clean and subscribe. Thanks. See you later.